There are four recognized types of intimate partner violence. So they are determined based on the type of violence used, the motive of the perpetrator, and the context in which they occur. So, what are some situations when intimate partner violence might occur? Think about what motivations the perpetrator might have for using violence in the relationship. Can you think of any cases that have been covered in the news? Perhaps the most notorious is that involving Chris Brown and Rihanna. So with those in mind, we're going to discuss the four types, and I want you to try to think about where your answers fall, which form they apply to. So the first form is intimate terrorism. Now this is the most severe and the most pervasive. It's rooted in the need for power and control more so than all the other forms. Okay, it's important to remember that all intimate partner violence is rooted in power and control, but that's especially true in the case of intimate terrorism. Okay, when you think about the word terrorism, right, you think about severe, scary, pervasive violence that's used to send a message, right? And that's also true in the case of intimate terrorism. Okay, it involves threats, intimidation, and isolation. So they really do what they can to isolate their victim from friends, family, and the outside world in general. As I mentioned, it involves severe and persistent abuse. Okay, that it's frequent and it escalates over time. So it's continuing to get more and more concerning, and it involves all the forms of intimate partner abuse that we discussed in class on Tuesday. Okay, it's the most likely to result in serious injury and the most likely to come to the attention of criminal justice professionals. Okay, that's mostly because it's the most likely to, be so disruptive in the home that a neighbor calls the police, or that it causes such severe injury that when the victim goes to the hospital, it then calls the attention of the criminal justice system. The second form is situational couple violence. Okay, this is also called common couple violence. And it's called that because this form is the most common. It occurs when a conflict gets out of hand and results in violence. So a couple is having an everyday argument and it just escalates out of control. Okay, it often starts with what would be considered run-of-the-mill disagreements. So you're arguing over what TV show to watch, or who left their laundry sitting out, or who didn't do the dishes, right? It's just a silly fight that most couples have, but this escalates, okay? And as you might imagine, this is the most common form of intimate partner violence. It's especially true in the United States and among younger couples. Okay, this form, unlike the other forms, is the most likely to involve both men and women about the same. Okay, it tends to not result in serious injury or be a part of a persistent pattern of abuse. And as a result, it's the least likely to come to the attention of the criminal justice system and the least likely to come to result in serious injury. The third type is violent resistance. Okay, and this is violence that's perpetrated by a victim against the partner who had been abusing them. So think about a couple that had been involved in intimate terrorism. So you have partner A who's been inflicting the intimate terrorism on partner B. Well, eventually, given whatever circumstances, partner B uses violence to retaliate against their abuser, which is partner A. That is violent resistance. This can also be, even if it's not in a long-term pattern of abuse, this also could be a reaction to the onset of what would become intimate terrorism. So let's say the partner A, who was the abusive partner, had been slowly trying to control them or isolate them or take control of the finances, and then they one night become frightening, and partner B responds by retaliating with violence. Okay, so this can be understood as self-defense, okay? And so this is usually in response to a perceived threat. And it's often a one-time event, okay? And so this is not a part of pattern of control manipulation. Now, it occurs as a result of the one partner's need for power and control, but the violence that occurs in this instance is not necessarily trying to get control or power over their partner. The final form of intimate partner violence is mutual violent control. So this is a very rare form of IPV. Okay, this is when both partners are acting in a violent manner, trying to get control over the other. It can be understood as mutual combat. As I mentioned, it's very rare, and what it exactly looks like can be based on, it can vary based on circumstances. So both partners can be using violence to control each other in a specific setting. The clearest example I think of is, let's say you and your partner are at a party and your partner's been drinking heavily and they want to drive home. And you are trying to stop them. So you try to take their keys from them and they don't like that. So they start wrestling with you and you start wrestling back. And now y'all are wrestling on the ground, brawling with each other. Okay, that is mutual violent control. You're both trying to gain control over the situation. The other form it can kind of take is when you have two people that are attempting to kind of get so much control over the other that it's actually two intimate terrorists trying to inflict their control on the other. And so it's two people kind of battling back and forth for control over a relationship. Those are the 4 forms. Make sure you review these. They are important.